Welcome to the Stop Faking Fine podcast, a show that will empower you to finally show up for yourself. It's time to stop faking fine. Darla, I am so excited, first of all, to see you. Darla.
It's like, oh my gosh, you guys, you're like the rock star. And I am just living in your world. Like you are the epitome of like energy and like hope and all those things. So I am honored to actually like be a guest on your show because we all can just sit back and learn from you. It's great.
Oh my gosh, you are so sweet. You guys, don't you have just those people that when the first time I met Darla, like my face lit up. It's these friends that you meet. I mean, when we say the internet, it sounds so creepy, like, oh, the internet, but it is the power of social media. Yeah. I met Darla, I don't know, a few months back, and we instantly became friends. And I wanted to introduce you to her because, Darla, you just have such a powerful story. And
oh, thank you.
I just love you, and my heart is connected to your heart for it. And I just can't wait to have this conversation and just kind of dive into how you have gone from a literal place of tragedy to triumph, for lack of a better word.
Oh, well, thank you. And I just want to say it is the power of the internet because it's like, you're the friend I didn't know I was missing in my life. And it's like, we talked, guys, when we connected for the first time, I mean, it was like talking to somebody I've known for 30 years. And it just, when you put yourself out there, you have no idea what kind of comes back to you. And so plug for the internet right there. But thank you so much for having me. Yeah. We kind of connected over our various tragedies that happened in very different ways. Yours was coming from a beautiful love story and how life just kind of takes that person from you and how do you bounce back from that? And mine was coming from absolute poor decision making in my life and thinking I could save someone and that I could be enough for both of us and was not. And as a result, it kind of ended up in a very abusive situation in marriage and had 2 little kids and ended up having to flee in the middle of the night with an 8 and 5-year-old with a police escort from the state of Tennessee to the Florida line. And you wake up one day and you're like, how did this become my life? How did this become my life? And then you find yourself just becoming robotic and, kind of to the point of your podcast, you fake fine. And there's that, the saying, you fake it till you make it. But then
which is such a terrible line.
It's horrible. It's horrible. It's like, why do I have to do that? And so like I was hiding who I was from my kids and I was sloughing them off to this person, that person. I'm like, I'm not okay. And my kids can't see me be okay. And so I was missing out on even pieces of their life because I was not okay. And I didn't know how to cope. And I was putting things in different boxes and I'll pull this box off the shelf because that's who people are needing to be now. And then put that one back on the shelf. And then I'll go pick up this one because now I have to go be mom. And rather than cry on the floor in the closet, with a bottle of wine, like how did this become my life and all those things,
The crying on the floor with a bottle of wine. Yes. Yeah. I think for me, part of our friendship and part of the story that I really want to lead into is that when I was grieving, I really felt like I was the only one that was going through this tragic situation. Yeah. I was 40. I did not know another person at that age that had lost their husband, that had small children, or were in a situation that you didn't have any kind of support system nearby that knew, like nobody knew what you were struggling with. Nobody knew because you didn't let them behind the curtain. Right?
Oh yeah.
Because we are strong, independent women, and we are going to try to put on that face of fine. Yeah. Because if you don't know how to not be fine, like that's where the struggle I think lies. If you don't know how to not be fine, then you just, like you said, you put on all these different masks. You're like, oh, you need me to be mom, so I'm going to show up as mom. Oh, you need me to be a corporate executive. I'm going to show up as a badass. Oh, you need to be whatever. But bring us back to the moment where you were in Tennessee with your 2 children, fully recognizing that your marriage was not working. Like what are the things that led up to you getting to that place where you were like, this has to change?
Yeah, great question. So we ended up being together for 10 years, married for 8.5. We were both pastors' children. So if any of you are familiar with that world, you don't get divorced. It's a 4-letter word. You suffer in silence. Everything is rainbows and unicorns. And 6 weeks into our marriage, he had cheated for the first time. And I thought, okay, we're figuring this out, and in full disclosure, we did not do it right. We did it backwards. We got pregnant before we were married. Our son was 6 weeks old. We dedicated him at our wedding. Our dads married us, that whole kind of deal where, okay, God is sovereign and God's going to heal, and God can heal and do anything if both parties are willing to be honest about what is really happening and heal together and grow together and be honest about things. And so, I was... Then we had our second child. We were having all kinds of issues. So what solves that but another baby? And so, right? Like, well, another baby will solve our problems. We'll bring another kid into this crazy chaos, So we had my daughter. So my son was 3. We brought her into the world, and life just changed for me. Because my son was a mama's boy, still to this day, as almost 26-year-old is a mama's boy. But there was something about a mother-daughter dynamic. And there was something very unique to that where I just thought, what's happening? And I don't know that I knew it as what is happening. Like, oh my gosh, this is the world I'm living in. How did I get here? I wasn't there yet, but it was... she was about a year and a half, maybe. And every year, my mother and my 2 sisters and I always would go somewhere for like a siblings weekend. And this year we brought my mother, and we all went to Philadelphia. We went to the Philadelphia Flower Show and just spent time as a family, blah, 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 blah. And in the meantime of that, he told me, I need to talk to you when you get home. I knew immediately what had happened. Said nothing to my siblings because, again, you fake it, right? Nothing's happening. Everything.
Yeah, you're not going to let everyone into your chaos. Yeah, you're not going to let anyone in.
Nothing to see, So we get home, we go out to eat. He doesn't tell me anything, so I'm like, okay, well, maybe it wasn't as bad as what I thought it was. Whatever. The next day, I am at work in a corporate setting. I have 25 sales reps under me. I'm responsible for $50 million a year in revenue. Calls me at the office to tell me what had happened because he knew I was not going to blow up at the office. I was like, you manipulate. Anyway. So, I was like, it's fine. We'll deal with it. It's fine. We can handle it. Like, I immediately went into operation, like damage control. Let's fix it. Whatever. Right. Cause nothing is going to beat me. Right.
Right. You're going to, everything is figure outable. Everything is figure outable. You just need to figure out how.
Yeah, I'll find a way through. And so get home, go through this whole thing, and immediately something shut off in me. And that next morning, it was a February, I wake up and I said, I can remember getting up on the bed, my side of the bed, putting my 2 feet down on the floor and saying, I don't know how or when, but I'm done. And I will be out of this marriage. I don't know how or when. And that took another 3 years for me to do that. And so we separated in summer of 2006. And things happened, but I was on autopilot by that point. It was just, there was more cheating and I didn't care. Okay. Yeah.
You were numb to it, you were numb to the cheating by that point. But where my heart really goes is it's grieving the loss of a life that you intended to have. And you were like, I'm going to do whatever it takes for whatever reason. I think a lot of it is just like in our hearts, we want things, our intended plan, we want to see it come to fruition. And then you add the pastor's child and all the other eyeballs on what's happening. And it just raises your stress, overwhelm, anxiety for the situation to think clearly for how you can step your way out of it.
Yeah. And it's like the dream didn't come through, but I can manage what this new reality is. And I can make this work. I can make everybody be okay in this situation. And so I separated and said, I'm moving out. Kids are coming, whatever, da, 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 da. And the day I was moving out, to show you how delusional I think we both were, the movers were there. And as my last box was on the truck, he was saying, so you're really doing this? I can't come with you, question, those types of things. I was like, where have you been for the last 3 hours as this truck has been packed? Right.
Right.
So I move across town, what have you. And I was not even in that apartment for 3 weeks. He was coming over every night saying bye to the kids. No problem. Whatever. Say bye to the kids. I don't care. But then that last week, he started parking outside of the balcony of my apartment. And I would sit out there and relax and whatever. And I looked down and I was like, is that him in his, he's parked outside, literally with the steering wheel looking up, waiting to see if he catches me. And I don't know what he was looking for. I don't really care, but I was like, I'm not going to live my life this way.
Yeah.
The following day, I go to work. I go to lunch with some girlfriends. I drive my car. I come out from the restaurant at lunch. There is a note on my windshield that says, I hope you enjoyed your time at lunch with the girls. I was like, gosh. Oh no. So I'm like, I got stalker thing going on, and I think in his mind, as delusional as he was, I think in his mind, he was thinking like, is she also doing this, or is she also cheating, or is there somebody else? Because you would never leave me. Yeah. It's somebody else, those kinds of things. So, then that final night I had, somebody from Florida that was here to visit me, and, the kids were asleep. It's maybe 8:00, maybe 6:00 in the evening. And he is banging down the door. And and we are, both of us, holding ourselves up against the door, and the hinges are coming off of the door.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm calling my dad, who I call first, Daddy's girl. And I said, Dad, I don't know what to do here. And he's like, you hang up the phone and call the police. Like, I don't know why are you calling me? I'm in Florida. You're in Tennessee. So he goes away for about 20 minutes, comes back, bangs on the door again. Well, by this time, my children are now awake and in bed with me, and he's like, where are you going? What's going, blah, 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 blah. And so the apartment landlord people are now involved. The police are now, but like, sir, you're going to have to leave. You're going to have to leave. Like, my kids are in there. My kids are in there. Sir, they already know. You've already seen your kids today. It's time to go home, blah, 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 blah. So, then I am just sitting there like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do? So I call my dad again, and he's like, how quickly can you be packed? And I was like, I don't know. So 45 minutes later, there is a semi truck in front of my apartment. Pack all your stuff. Let's go.
Your dad sent the semi truck to you?
My dad sent a semi truck. Yeah. And, he never left the property. He was roaming around. And so the police had come back and saying, this guy's not leaving. This guy's not leaving. You are not safe here. You need to go somewhere else. So I'm packing all my stuff up. The movers are there. They're moving everything out, blah, blah. I have all I know is I'm going to go visit my parents in Florida, I have no idea what I'm going to do.
But you're going to bring everything you own. You're like, I'm going to bring everything.
And the police are saying, you are not safe here. You are not safe here. He will not leave. He is combative. So, my friend is still there. And so the movers leave. The cops go, like, he's leaving, he's left the premises. 5 minutes after they all leave, he is back pounding on the door. So he was waiting, hiding somewhere for them to leave. So I call the cops again, and they're like, ma'am, we are going to be right there. We're 30 seconds away. We will come and we will escort you. Yeah. So they got us into the car, blah, 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 made him wait. So we hop on 75 on the highway, and here he comes, and I am speeding, and my car happened to have a CB radio in it, and I can
That'll be a story for another day.
And I can hear them saying, there is a woman and 2 small children fleeing for her life. Do not stop her. Her husband is following her. Do not stop her. We got all the way to the Georgia line, and that is where he stopped and finally turned around.
I'm speechless.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because it's one of those things now, like 20 years later, almost 15, 17 years later, like my kids and I have had conversations about it. He's remarried, he has kids, like there's so much healing that has taken place, but it was, whether you acknowledge this is your story or not, this is the truth. Mm-hmm. This is the facts. And it's not just about what's my truth versus your truth. This is literally what happened. And my children remember this. And I had never failed at anything. anything. I had never studied a day in my life. I was a straight A student. I had never been hired for a job. I'd always been recruited for jobs. I just had that life.
Yeah.
And here's something where the choice I made to go into a life with someone and have children with them, how did I mess that up?
Yeah.
And so it was just this autopilot mode that happened to me where it's like, I'll just pretend because that's what I'm supposed to do. That's what everyone expects of Darla. If Darla's okay, everybody's okay. And then there was a day where I just
you weren't okay.
I lost my ish and I was like, I'm not okay. I'm not
Yeah.
okay. And
Yeah.
it was the toughest, most freeing, liberating, fabulous, most horrible, wonderful day of my life.
100%. I think the biggest takeaway for me in all of this and for those listening is understanding, right, that you can't fix it. So it's not a conversation to be like, oh, go get divorced. Oh yeah, divorce is great. No, none of it. Like if we bring it back to the root of grief, like none of that grief is good. I mean, can I use the word good? I mean, it's a learning place, but none of it's easy.
Right.
It's grieving the life that you intended to live and then having to realize, okay, this is not working. And so for action steps moving forward, like I also recognize that it's been 20 years, right? So you, like me, similarly, happy to talk about it because I'm healed from it.
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. And I think, 20 years ago, I mean, people have so much more access to information, but 20 years ago, nobody told you divorce is also like a grief or the loss of a loved one. Mm-hmm. It's almost like a death has happened. Nobody talked about that,
No.
And especially in the Christian world, you don't talk about divorce. That's not okay. Right. Or, oh, poor them, Southern, you guys will know this if you live in the South, bless their heart.
Right.
They couldn't do it right,
Right.
And so it was one of those things where I had to just stand up on my own 2 feet and say, I am not okay. I mean, I had to go to counseling. I was on antidepressants for about 4 months. And, I can remember my dad doing a sermon from the pulpit. At that time, there's about 5,000 people in this church. It's not like this is some small little country church. Okay. And he's sitting there talking about, I know people need help, but I will never understand why people need therapy when you can pray about it and you've got God and this and that. And I was seething in the seat.
Yeah.
Because again, I wasn't telling anybody I wasn't okay. Right. My kids were gone at camp or whatever they were gone to. And I go to lunch with my parents and my mother, who is so intuitive, says, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
I just said,
and you're like, I am ready to hurt someone with my words.
And because I'm also a daddy's girl. So I'm like, I don't want to do anything else to disappoint my dad or to upset my dad, whatever. Yeah. And I just said, Dad, I need you to know you have isolated 25% of America with your message today.
Or more.
Yeah. He's like, what are you talking about? And I said, well, first of all, your daughter sees a therapist. Your daughter is on antidepressants. Your daughter is not okay. Your daughter was suicidal 2 nights ago and had to call her therapist because I wondered if my kids were better off with not having to deal with this. So he's like, oh. And he was so, there was a nuance of what he assumed to then the reality of this has now hit home for this daddy.
Right.
I am so sorry. I mean, he was just so broken for me, but he was also so flabbergasted. Like, how did I not see that? How did I not know that? And then he was like, tell me about this. Like help me with this,
I love that for you guys. Like, I love that he was soft and because it comes by honestly, because you're a strong, independent woman faking it.
Yeah. Yeah. And, and it was interesting to even admit to, and I don't even know what made me say I'm on antidepressants because they were the only 2 people in the world that even knew that at that point in time. Because again, even though I'm getting help privately, I'm still fine because nobody else did. Right. Like it's so stupid. But then I woke up one day again, I have just these epiphanies and I make decisions and go. I woke up one day and I was like, I don't need these anymore. Like I'm okay. I'm okay. And so I went to therapy that following day with the psychologist, and he just said, how are you? I was like, I'm fine. I said, I didn't take the pill yesterday. I said, and I think I want to be done with pills. He was like, okay. He's like, so that means you're probably gonna have to do some addition, like you're gonna have to do more like work. And I'm like, that's fine. But I'm here. Like, I don't want to be dependent. I don't want to pretend. I don't like, I'm going to, it's not suffer through this. I want to work through this because this is not going to be the defining moment in my life. This is going to be something that has happened. This is going to be something that I went through. This is not going to be the thing that, oh, she's a divorcee. She's a this, she's a whatever. It's like, it's the same thing. Like for you, like the death is horrendous and unimaginable and horrific. Yeah. And there's also life after it.
Right. But you have to lean into that. Yeah. And you have to say, and it took me years to get to the place where I was like, okay, I do not want grief to define me. I do not want to be defined by the fact that my husband dropped dead. I am still a woman that wants to live a vibrant life. I have gifts to share. You have gifts to share, but it is really hard it's easier. Let's put it this way. It's easier, I think, to settle and be like, oh, this is just, it is what it is. Like
it is what it is.
It is what it is. And for you, I'm a divorcee and people are going to judge me, or I'm this or I'm that. And it's like, no, I am going to look for new tools to help me to show up better. And I feel like when you wake up in the morning and you say, I don't know what it is about these moments, I feel like it's a Holy Spirit download that it's like, 100%. listen, we're done with this antidepressant and we are going to find other tools that are going to help us get there. And for me and my grief journey and for everyone, that's that we're friends, like part of my grief journey and my ability to lean into this next chapter was just in balancing my stress hormone, getting that, getting my gut to balance my stress hormone to move forward. And for you, your story is different. So you sat in that therapist office and said, I want more tools. What tools did you walk away with?
Yeah. So two pretty big ones. Number one, the racing thoughts were going insane. They were just going insane. Like, oh my gosh, this and this and this. And he's like, write it down.
Oh,
when you're having these racing thoughts, even if it doesn't make sense, write them down, get the download out of your head, because otherwise it's just ricocheting and it doesn't have anywhere to land. Give it a place to land. Doesn't mean you have to do anything with it, but start by getting the thoughts out.
I love that.
Then when you're looking at the thoughts, you can say, does that require an action or is that a feeling? And then that's when I learned all about self-sabotage, because they're just thoughts. We have all kinds of thoughts that come into our mind. But when we're making anywhere between 3,000 and 4,000 decisions a day, consciously or subconsciously, your thoughts are coming into your mind. And from in those thoughts, you are forming an emotion. You are attaching an emotion to that thought. From there, you are then attaching an action you're going to take based off how you feel. In that segment of those three things, two of those, you have direct access to make a choice. You have the thoughts that come in. That's subliminal. You may not have control over that. I can control what emotion I allow to be assessed to that thought. And from that emotion, I get to determine, am I going to take an action? I woke up and somebody upset me. Somebody made me mad. Somebody did this. I still get to choose. I still get to have control of how much I allow that emotion to take over my day, or how much I am going to react versus respond to the emotion that is coming into my mind. So that was life-changing for me. And then the second thing that
I feel like pausing on that. Like I could listen to that all over again. I'm over here like frantically taking notes. Like, yes, it's a ping pong ball in your brain of different ideas, and being able to write them down and then assign value to them. Like, that's brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we have all kinds of thoughts. Okay. Oh my gosh. And for those of us who are, have online businesses, or we're in the online space and you see all these things, you're like, oh my gosh, I bet they've got $1 million worth of clients and they're doing this and doing that. Who cares? It has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
Has nothing to do with you. But you allow an emotion to be assessed of I am less than.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not good enough. What I'm doing doesn't look like them, so it must not be worthy. And then I stop. Maybe I'm not going to go reach out for a new client, or maybe I'm not going to go put that post out on social media, or maybe I'm not going to interject with or interact with those comments online because I don't feel good about myself. Nobody did that to you but you.
You did it to you, and now you are
did it to you.
settling
Yeah.
for less than
Yeah.
you desire, and
Yeah.
honestly, less than God desires for your life, right? For you, which is amazing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so tell us the second thing.
Yeah, and just to finish that piece, and here was what the kicker, where that psychologist kicked me in the butt when he said, if you keep making yourself feel this way, or allowing yourself to feel less than what you did, or still assessing what you felt in your marriage here, then why did you get divorced? Because he still has the power over you.
Oh, that's
and
so
I was
good.
like, oh my God.
Oh, he does not. You're like, oh, he does
I could not go do that work fast enough, because I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. But then the second thing is that he said, at some point, you're going to have to understand, in divorce, your experience with it is going to be different than your children's.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. He's like, because for you, you made the choice to divorce, regardless of the cause. You made that choice to divorce the family, to separate the family. Your kids did not. So my biggest advice to you was, don't ever let them hear you say anything about their dad.
Oh my gosh. I love that. That is the best advice, though.
Yeah. And I didn't ever, I hadn't said anything and didn't. And he's like, because there will come a day where your kids are going to want to talk about it. And you want to be able to make sure their experience is theirs, and you didn't project your experience onto them. So, I hadn't said a whole lot about anything. I would just, and I told because their dad had talked to me, and he said, please don't tell the kid. Please. I was like, I will never tell the kids what happened. But if they ask me, I will not lie to my children. I will not lie to my children. He's like, fair enough. So, my son was a freshman in high school. This is how long this took. He was 8 when I left the state.
Okay. 10 years later.
10 years, basically. 14 years later, maybe?
Yeah.
No. 8 years, whatever the math is. Yeah. I'm not a mathematician, whatever it was. And so.
I'm not a mathematician.
We're in the grocery store. We're at a Publix, and he's pushing the cart. And out of, nowhere, he says, Mom, you didn't divorce Dad just because he was drunk at Applebee's every night, did you? Which, that's a whole nother story. He's like, but you didn't divorce Dad because he was drunk every night, did you? And I'm literally grabbing for a 12-pack of eggs at this point. It's like I should have grabbed for a 12-pack of beer, but I'm like, what? I'm so flabbergasted, like in the middle of nowhere. I was like, well, honey, of course not. And so I'm waiting for the follow-up question of, well, then why did you, And I'm like, every piece of my body was so flexed. Like I'm just not prepared. I am not prepared for this moment. Like, here it is in the middle of the Publix, grabbing my eggs, and I am not prepared for this conversation. But there wasn't one. There was no follow-up question, which let me know he knows exactly why I divorced his dad. Yeah. And, my daughter and I had a much harder time with everything. We had a great relationship and fabulous relationship with my kids now. She's married, all those kinds of things. But it was one of those where she was conscientiously aware that I was not there when I needed to be there. I was physically there. But I was not mentally there. She played travel volleyball, went to school on a volleyball scholarship. So she and I spent a lot of time together, and I was on autopilot going through the motions. Right. Autopilot going through the motions, get you where you need to go. She was a straight A student, same kind of whatever. And then there was one day where she just like, why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Because, again, poor decisions. I repeated the cycle with the first guy I dated. I repeated the cycle. And
after you were divorced.
After I was divorced. And it wasn't physical, but it was verbal. And he I had moved him into the house because I was trying to reconstruct a family dynamic.
Yeah.
And so that was a tough conversation because she was like, why didn't you protect us? Because he had become like a father figure to her. And then when we split up, when I realized this wasn't healthy, here she was again abandoned by another fatherly figure. So that one was all mama. I had to own that. And so we had to have these conversations and understand, I was not okay. And I made some really poor decisions that impacted the joy or lack thereof of your childhood. Yeah. And so part of the work of being fine and not faking fine, but actually being okay is understanding sometimes you're going to have tough conversations. And it's also okay that I wasn't mother of the year. I had to talk through it and work through it. But now, because I allowed them to have their experience with me and that be okay, just like I had that conversation with my dad and said, you've isolated me out. And I came from a place of, I didn't get that right for you. We have a relationship now that you cannot touch if your life depended on it because it was a trusted place. Critical conversations does not mean that your kids or whoever it is going to be critical of you. Right. And there's a big fat difference with that. And so being willing to have conversations where, you know what? Yeah, I didn't get that right, but here's what I've learned. Here's what I know. Here's, it's like that old adage, when you know better, you do better. And it's true. But if you don't have that acknowledgement, I could sit here and blame an ex for everything that happened. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, I may not have been what caused my pain, but I am responsible for my healing.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. Yeah. Your life, I like to say your life is not 100% your fault, however it's turned out, but it is 100% your responsibility to take the bull by the horns and decide who do you want to be. Yes. And I want to fast forward to your beautiful life now because you have gotten it right. Yes. So you have healthy relationships with your children and honestly have amazing takeaways for how I think the keeping things positive verbally for your children, for your ex-husband is easier said than done. Yeah. On the daily. And so I appreciate you sharing that and appreciate that that's one of the tips that you share because that's real.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, you want to sit there and think, oh, as a parent, you're always going to protect your kids. And, the road to hell is paved with good intentions. Yeah. I never intentionally abandoned my kids or intentionally moved somebody in that was going to be, a jerk but when you're when you're in such pain and in such denial and when you're just, your world is spinning, there is nothing that is grounding you, even though you grew up in it and know better. Yeah. Until you can have an acknowledgement, I am not okay. Yeah. You're going to repeat cycles. You're going to make the same decisions over and over again that don't help you build a life that you can actually love and be proud of. And, it was when my now husband and I, who I love and is fabulous and phenomenal and who actually I've known since about third grade, oddly enough.
Oh my gosh. I'm beaming from ear to ear while you're talking.
It's crazy. We grew up in the same church, youth group, all that kind of stuff, never dated, whatever, but went through, similar type of situations. And, we started dating and when, telling him, he knew from the periphery kind of what had happened to me, but not the details of everything, And there was one night where he just kind of was pushing some buttons in a beautiful way, but I couldn't see it because I hadn't had those healthy types of relationships. I'd kind of forget relationships. I'll just die single old woman just with dogs instead of a bunch of cats. And so we're sitting there and he's asking me these questions and he was just making me feel more vulnerable than I wanted to be at that point in time because I wanted to be able to control that. Right. Yeah. And so he said something to me and I just said, look, you are pushing too far. You're doing this. You need to back off and do what, and I that old rage came up out of nowhere and he patiently got done or waited till I got done. And he said, are you done? As calmly as this, are you done? I was like, yes, and said, I want to spend the rest of my life. We'd been talking about, he's like, I want to spend the rest of my life with you, and I will go to the ends of the world with you, for your children, together. He's like, but I will not pay the price for those who hurt you before me. That's not mine to carry.
Oh, mic drop.
And I was like, who do you think you are? I mean, I loaded back in because that was my reaction.
That was your learned behavior, and you needed to learn a new behavior.
And then he was like, aren't you ready to put that down?
Yeah.
So here I thought I had done all of this work. And it's a relevant story because different things and different scenarios will come up that will still peel back one last layer of an onion that is hidden.
Yeah.
And I just said, I don't want to bring anything into this relationship. I don't want you to pay any price for it. That's not your responsibility, because it's my job to come into a relationship whole.
Right.
It's nobody else's job to make me happy, because they're going to fail.
100%.
They're going to fail, and I'm not going to make you happy. But it's not two halves make a whole. It's two whole people coming together. And it was the most beautiful thing that just catapulted our relationship, because first of all, it was somebody coming, not at me, but coming to me in a way where I'm not going to run from you, but we're not doing this.
Yeah.
But coming from a way that is safe, coming at me from a place that is protective, coming at me from a place of, you don't have this, you're still acting like this is what defines you.
Right.
It's time. That was something that happened to you. And it was this last aha moment I needed that said, oh, it's time to lay that down. It's time to lay that down. And it's just been a beautiful thing. Does it mean everything is rainbows and unicorns with us? Of course not. Of course not. But you learn. And so I don't regret anything that I've been through. I don't regret a single thing that I have been through, because it has given me more capacity for empathy and compassion for others, and understanding, how did they get in that situation? You have no idea how they got in that situation. You have no idea, but you have the capacity now to understand and love your fellow man. I have more capacity to have empathy for people who, I don't know how in the world I ended up here. And I also have more capacity to say, you're also not in it alone. Mm-hmm. Let's go through this together. And I will walk through this with you, because I've been there and I've lived it. And I can't wait for you to see the other side, because if you can do the work and say, I am not okay, it is blissful on the other side of that.
100%. And I love that you share that you have to each be whole. I believe that, live that with my whole heart, because the moment that you say you complete me, or it's like, that's like nails on a chalkboard saying for me, because you're not completing me. You're making me better. Two spouses should be there to constantly sharpen the other one, so that you are together growing to be fabulous. And I think in your second relationship, you were trying to find someone that was going to complete you, because you were looking for the family. Man plus woman plus children equals happiness. Right. Yes. Let's make that happen. So I love this. And now you take all of your experience, like you have been coaching executives for years, helping people run businesses, $50 million and more. So now tell us more about what you are doing to help all the rest of us entrepreneurs that are out there.
So I am a management consultant, and going through, obviously I grew up in corporate America. So all of the systems and operations and processes and compliance and all of those things that you have to go through. And so many entrepreneurs have a fabulous idea. They have a product or a service they want to sell, but they don't know how to build a business. They don't know how to lead teams and build people and set up a business to be sold, or create a succession plan strategy. And so I've gone into businesses and really helped CEOs and entrepreneurs fall back in love with their business, so that they can build and live a life that they love, right? Because you go and start a business, you don't want to have an expensive hobby. You want a business that's going to give you the financial and time freedom that you want to be able to live your life. And so I go in and work with companies and work with executives and CEOs and coach them on things. And, even CEOs don't have it all together, no matter what they tell you or what it looks like. They struggle with the same doubts and fears everybody else does, and they need the help, and it's giving the guidance and giving them the tools that will encourage them and motivate them to want to do the work. At the end of the day, we all have to do the work, but sometimes you need somebody that can help it be framed in a way that makes you feel like it's okay to say I'm not okay. And I'm also willing to go do this work so that I can get to a better place, because I know I'm meant and built and designed for more. And we're all created for a purpose, and we were created as a masterpiece. And if I can help people find that, then I've done what I'm put on this earth to do.
Oh my gosh, I love that. I'm like hanging on your every last word. Like, I love every single part about that, because it is like, whether it's emotional in our personal lives and through your divorce, through the grief of the whole thing, finding the tools to make you whole in that. And it comes back to acknowledging, like, hey, this is good, but not great. Yeah. I am not willing to fake fine for another minute. I'm going to seek help. Emotionally or whatnot, to get to the next place. And now taking all that you've learned, because in being a CEO, in being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of emotional elements. There are tactical things that we have to learn and know, and you need the systems in place and all of that. But the fact that your heart is softened now and has all of the empathy that has come with the years of experience that you have, I love it. So how do we find you? What's the best way to reach out to you? How do we work with you, Darla?
So come find me on LinkedIn. I'm under Darla Bonk, Bonk, Darla Bonk Consulting on LinkedIn. You can find our business page. You can also find me on darlabonk.com. You can just search for Darla Bonk on Instagram or Facebook, and you will find me. Come, let's have a conversation, share your story with me, and I'd be honored to serve you and help you in any way possible.
Oh my gosh, amazing. I will definitely put all of the links in the show notes. And this has just been, I could sit here and talk to you for another hour, Darla. I absolutely love our time together. If you have stuck with us to the end, thank you so much for listening with us. We greatly appreciate you. We would be most honored if you would share this episode with a friend, someone that you know that is grieving, whatever it is, the life that they thought that they were going to have, or if you're grieving the life that you thought that you wanted to have. We hope that we spoke life into you over the last, 40 some minutes, and we just love you and would appreciate it if you would share this with a friend. Until next time, thank you, Darla.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.